Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
you gotta be confident about your Achilles when you show up.
Yeah, I mean, I got him at 2.
And Adam LaRue. Don't hope to be great and dominate.
Gobble, 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 gobble. We're here for Thanksgiving, baby. We are one day away. We're recording this on a Wednesday night. So we're one day away from that beautiful, gorgeous turkey and stuffing and football on the TV, which is why we had to come back for another episode here tonight on Operation Domination, the Injury Inquiries episode. Yes, everything's getting moved up today this week, in case you guys have not noticed. So make sure you go back on Fantasy Football Advice Network, on your favorite podcast app. Check out our episodes. We already dropped our Week 13 preview yesterday. That is out and about for you guys to upload. And I'm going to go live tomorrow with Chaz Filardi. We're still going to get those bets in. We're just going to go live at 11 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning to make sure we got all that going for you guys there. As always, I'm your host, Dan Mader, and I'm joined here with the one and only Mr. Dr. Brian Scott of the Injured List podcast. Brian, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Looking forward to some turkey tomorrow and hanging out with the fam. Got some good guests coming over to the house to feed, so should be fun.
So you guys are hosting.
Oh, we're hosting this year, yes.
Oh man, it's always fun when you got to host.
Yeah,
so
it'll be interesting.
We don't host our family, thank God. We do host something called Friendsgiving. This has been a new phenomenon over the last, 10 years or so now. And there's more people at our Friendsgiving than there would be for my family Thanksgiving anyway. Like I had to do it, right. My wife does. Yeah, it's nuts. So hosting, I know those woes of hosting Thanksgiving dinner. It's fun, but it's a lot of work. So good luck.
It's not as many people as it was originally supposed to be. So for that, I'm grateful. But it would have been nice to have everybody here. Unfortunately, not everybody could make it. Last minute decisions and plans had to be changed, but we'll have a good time regardless.
That's what you should lead off. Your what am I thankful for today at the table? That most of you didn't come. Yes, that's what I'm 100% thankful for.
We'll keep that close to this.
Just here in the Operation Domination crew. That's it. All right. So we got injuries to talk about, of course, every single week. A lot of big names to get through. And while Thanksgiving's fun, like we get football all day long. We even get a football game on Black Friday. It does make these decisions have to happen a hell of a lot faster for people who may be waiting to see, or is this guy going to play, or is this guy going to play? Or, and it's kind of a bit of a mess. You kind of have to play that strategic game of who's available when. And I bring it up to say this before we even get into the injury analysis. If you have a player who is injured and you don't know if he's going to play, put him in your flex. Put him in your flex. All right. If you've got a player who you're definitely going to play, that's going to be playing on either Thursday or Friday, make sure that player is in the running back or wide receiver position. You need to give yourself flexibility heading into a weekend like this, especially if you're waiting on players who are injured at the moment. So open up those flex spots, slide those Thursday players into their wide receiver, running back, or tight end spots, and give yourself the most flexibility you possibly can have, because things are going to get crazy. They do every single year on a Thanksgiving slate. All right, with that, let's dive into the injuries. So Baker Mayfield dealing with that AC joint sprain. And I saw you post about this, that you didn't think it was going to be one.
Well, they said it was low grade, and this is non-throwing shoulder. He's a tough dude, man. He hasn't missed much time from injury standpoint, and he likes to tough it out. I think he kind of revels in being like the guy playing through stuff. That kind of has become his mantra. And if it's not that serious, he should have enough time to kind of get it feeling better. There is a chance, and I think the coach and the team has said the same thing, that he could be ready this weekend. He could suit up and play. And I don't think they've made a final decision on him yet. They're calling it questionable right now. I know Bridgewater didn't look so hot coming in there to fill in, so it sounds like they're going to want Mayfield out there if he's ready to go. And they are planning in that direction to try and have him available. So we'll see what he's able to do. Now, he's not going to do much at practice because they don't do a lot of contact stuff anymore anyway as the week goes on. So it's going to be a game time decision. He'll carry the questionable tag My guess is, though, he's going to push to play. The question is whether the team's going to let him get out there. And it at this point, it seems like it literally is a 50-50 shot.
I have to be honest with you. I couldn't believe it was a low-grade sprain because he looked like he had thrown his complete body out on the throw.
Well, that's the funny thing is they think the injury occurred a few plays before that, and they were looking at it, and then he came back out. I guess whatever he did to kind of torque the shoulder during that throw he made, because he wasn't hit, must have just been the thing that kind of, put the nail in the coffin, so to speak. There was some fear that he may have injured a prior injury and shoulder surgery that he had several years ago to that shoulder. I think he had a labral tear or a labral injury that he had repaired. But again, I think he had an MRI earlier in the week, and it basically showed that he had an AC joint sprain, which is what we thought it was based on some of the reports that were coming out earlier after the game. So luckily avoided major injury. And yeah, you thought it looked a lot worse than it really is, which is good. But again, 50-50 chance here that he's going to make it back this week. I think at the very least, if he doesn't play this week, we'll see him for sure week 14.
Yeah, tough dude, and clearly was in a lot of pain and just couldn't get through it. And when you're throwing the ball and it hurts your opposite shoulder that badly, throwing the football, yeah, it might be better just to get a little rest in. To your point, Teddy Bridgewater was not very good. He was 8 of 15 for 62 yards. It was absolutely brutal. Now look, Teddy Bridgewater is a career backup. There's a reason why he's in those backup husband commercials, okay? He's been doing it his entire career. He'll play better than this when he has a week, which Todd Bowles has already come out and said he's going to get a majority of the first team reps this week, just to make sure that he has a little more preparation under his belt and knocks a little bit of rust off. It's still not going to be great. You still don't love the ceiling for a guy like an Emeka Egbuka or Cade Otton or anybody else for that matter on that team, but it won't be as bad as it was, even if it is Teddy Bridgewater for this week. Pretty much put it this way. If you have Emeka Egbuka, you have to play him. I don't care if it's Teddy Bridgewater. I don't care if it's Baker Mayfield. You don't have to play Cade Otton because he was already a borderline play to begin with, even with Baker in there. You do not have to play Cade Otton. You do not, no matter who the quarterback is, need to play Chris Godwin. All right. He is not back up to full snuff yet. The snaps don't increase. Sure. Doesn't look good. Just from a physical standpoint, doesn't look healthy out there, or at least looks like he severely has lost 2, maybe 3 steps as of right now until he gets back into shape. So that's kind of the way this breaks down. If Teddy Bridgewater does have to go, I think he's okay now, but I have to mention Lamar Jackson. So every week he's been listed at the beginning of the week with a different injury. We had the knee thing that he had to deal with. Last week was the ankle, and he had the hamstring, weeks ago. And then now this week they listed him with a toe. I don't know if they're just trying to switch it up for the sake of switching it up, but it's just a little bit weird. Like every week it's listed with a different type of injury that makes him miss the opening day of practice. I don't know. What do you got on Lamar?
So some type of toe injury. It doesn't sound like it's serious. The team has commented that it's not a big deal. They expect that he'll be available for this weekend's game, and I suspect the same thing. Again, we're at a point in the season with Lamar Jackson where I don't expect him to practice much if he's coming off even just a little bruise. So it should be nothing to worry about from a fantasy standpoint. I think he's going to be a full go.
Yeah, he didn't even look like he was on the injury report anymore. Remember, they play the Cincinnati Bengals Thanksgiving night. So you will have Lamar Jackson, and you want to play him against Cincinnati. Now, he has not been great. You had a depleted Jets team, and he still didn't put up a lot of points. It's clear to me that he's not playing at 100% health, or maybe not 100% confident, whichever one, but he's not running around like Lamar, which is not getting you the fantasy points that you want. I don't know if I can look you in the eye and tell you to bench Lamar Jackson if he's available, though, especially against the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know if I can do it. I can make an argument as to why maybe he has a higher variance than you're used to having with the Lamar Jackson out there, but I can't sit there and tell you that Lamar Jackson should not be played as a top 10 quarterback, even with all of that. So my advice is this: unless you wound up falling into Drake May, which is possible, I've seen that out there, I'm not benching Lamar Jackson for anybody if you have him available. Plain and simple. And just kind of ride that wave and know that eventually it'll get better. Jaxson Dart, it's 2 weeks now, concussion. What we got?
Now, I think the Giants are playing Monday night this week. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the extended time will certainly work in Jaxson Dart's favor. I think it's going to be enough time that he will clear concussion protocol. The question is whether or not the Giants are going to throw him back in there right away if he doesn't get back to full practice before the weekend here. And given the holiday, that's probably one additional day that they'll lose. So it's good that they got the Monday night game. No clearance yet as of today, Wednesday. Still in concussion protocol. I think he may have done some stuff at practice, if I'm not mistaken, on Tuesday, Wednesday. But again, the concussion protocol.
I will jump in real quick. He did practice in a full today.
Oh, he did. So that's good. And that's what you need in order to get through the concussion protocol. Now, he'll still need to get cleared by an independent neurologist for that protocol to be cleared and ready to play. So one step closer. The question is really going to be, do you throw him back out there with a new offensive coordinator, new head coach, because they just let go of their offensive coordinator as well. So they just let go of their defensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator. Yes. Defensive coordinator. He was still the offensive play caller anyway, and he's still right. Yeah. So the question is, with all these changes happening at the coaching standpoint, Giants basically eliminated since like week 3. He still needs the experience. He still needs to take snaps. I think it will be safe for him to do so from the concussion standpoint. But he's one step closer, so I think we will see him. I don't think the Giants can afford not having him out there to gain experience. I really don't.
Yeah, so that is where that boils down to. I say, look, he's definitely going to be your starting quarterback next year, no matter what direction they go in a head coach. Plain and simple. So just give it another week on the concussion. And maybe I'm saying that because I selfishly want another week at Jameis Winston. That could be the reason.
And if they do that, that's not a bad idea because they have a week 14 bye. Finally, their bye week comes up. So you'll buy him an additional week to get ready and prepared and rest up. So it's not a bad thought to maybe just sit him, even if he does clear concussion protocol, give him an extra week. That might happen. That might be actually in their game plan.
Well, you can do that, and you can still give him a month of football to close out the year for him to play and get those reps heading into the next season. So it's not like he's going to lose anything. I'm not saying bench him for the rest of the year.
Right.
I'm just saying one more week. You got a tough matchup against the Patriots on Monday night. That's not a fun defense for a quarterback to play against to begin with, and especially a quarterback who, since he's been out, the narrative around him has been, you have to find a way to run less. I've said this before. I don't know how good of a Jaxson Dart quarterback he is if he runs less. But neither here nor there. Give me another week of Jameis. It's just fun watching Jameis play. I don't know. Fantasy, in all seriousness, I do think Jaxson Dart plays this week. If he's practicing in full, I think they will throw him out there. And if you do, because I don't think he physically can tone it down running wise. I don't think the offense works with him running less. And so that floor should give him a top 12 quarterback potential, even in a tough matchup against the Patriots. I especially love it for Theo Johnson. Jaxson Dart has targeted tight ends like crazy since he's been out there. So Theo Johnson's a top 12 tight end in my book. Wan'Dale Robinson's a flex play like he pretty much has been. And Tyrone Tracy's get enough work where he's a low in RB2, high in RB3. And that really doesn't change whether it's Jaxson Dart or Jameis Winston. I think the only thing that changes, honestly, is that Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, the wide receiver types, they might have a little bit more of a ceiling because we know Jameis will just let it fly. But outside of that, not much else changes. All right, so let's talk a little Aaron Rodgers. He did miss last week. What do we think he's going to do this week with the wrist injury?
Well, I was kind of surprised. I actually thought he was going to play. He was trending toward playing. They were saying that he would be able to with that left wrist. It might affect his ability to take a snap under center and drop back in the shotgun, but he can play. I mean, it's non-throwing wrist. And it sounds like he was gearing up to play and wanting to play. I think the team was really just protecting him more from himself last week. And it seems like it's a similar situation heading into this weekend. He's been practicing. He's still got that thing on his brace or splint or whatever it is on that left wrist. That's probably not going to come off for several weeks. But I think it really comes down to the team's decision whether or not they feel better with him out there over Mason Rudolph. But from a physical and a health standpoint, he's in no worse shape than he was last week or no better shape than he was last week either. So it's like, if you need him, put him out there, and he can do it. So it's just a question of whether Steelers decide to pull the trigger and get him back out there or not.
I'm going to lean towards most likely. I'm going to lean towards most likely that gets done. They lost to Chicago. They're fighting for the playoff lives along with everybody else because pretty much it looks like only one team's going to come out of the AFC North. I didn't think that was going to be the case at the start of the season, but that looks like how it's shaping up. So whoever wins that division is the only one that's locked in for the playoffs. I don't think they're going to let it go another week if Rodgers can at all suit up in this one. Jayden Daniels, I think there was a little bit of an update on him today.
Yeah, I think he's been working back. I think he was doing more practice. I saw some video clips of him dropping back and throwing some passes during drills and stuff, which, like we said, although it looked nasty and it could have been a lot worse, it turned out to be the best case scenario for that particular injury. He had no major structural damage to the elbow aside from the ligament injuries, which we know happened because he dislocated his elbow. You can't do that and not tear your ligaments. That's just impossible. But the good news is that can be treated non-operatively. It can be stable afterwards, and it sounds like that's the scenario that played out here. He'll probably still have to play with some type of protective brace or something on that elbow. But again, non-throwing elbow, so that's crucial here. He can make it back. We said that when the injury first happened. The question is whether or not the Commanders want him back and are going to risk potentially further injuring himself in another way or to that elbow again, and whether or not they're in the playoff hunt and have anything worth playing for. Again, similar to Jaxson Dart, you want him to be able to get snaps and gain some experience back there, regardless of the outcome of the season. And that's going to really rest with the management and coaching staff of the Commanders, whether he's good to go. But from a health perspective, no greater risk if he stepped out there tomorrow than he would have been before the injury. By all accounts, it sounds like things are fairly well with that elbow, as good as they're going to get.
I mean, all in all, that's good. That's good news. All in all, that's good news. And look, again, you kind of laid it out there. Jayden Daniels in his second year, if he can play this season, even though it is a lost season now for the Washington Commanders, you want him to still go back out there. And not even just that, like, I don't think Kingsbury or Dan Quinn are going to get fired this season, but there is a little bit of a temperature check on their seats, even after last season, because these are guys who've been retreads, who've been fired in places before. And that usually once they hit a little bit of a peak, once they start to decline from that peak, they don't ever recapture it back again, which is why they usually lead to getting terminated. So I do think there's a little bit of an element to that. I don't pick up the vibe that it's going to be this week for Jayden Daniels that he comes back. It feels very much like it's going to be at least Marcus Mariota for one more week. But I do think we're a week or two away from seeing Jayden. Everybody who plays fantasy football has the same question on their mind. If Jayden Daniels comes back week 15, the first week of your fantasy football playoffs, are you going to trust to play him? Now, to your point, it's a non-throwing elbow injury, so it shouldn't affect his throwing that much. It may affect his rushing, which is what you need out of Jayden Daniels. As a thrower, Jayden Daniels is a 200 to 215-yard passer on average. That's kind of where he lives. It's nothing special. You need him to run in combination with that. Is he going to be willing to run as often? Like, he will run. He's too athletic not to, but he's going to be running as often. I know they're not going to design any plays for him at the goal line. That much I could definitely tell you with the elbow injury. They ain't going to take that chance. They ain't that dumb. So I would say he's probably more of a high-end QB2 upon his return, unless we see something that just tells us differently. So if you can hold Jayden, because you've been holding him on your IR, fine. But that if he's back that first week of the playoffs, like, you want him back week 14. Give you that 1 week of him back on the field first. If his first game back's that first week of the playoffs, it's going to be hard for me to trust him, especially since I've gotten there without him to begin with. So a little tidbit for you guys there, because a lot of people are going to ask that question. Oh, boy. Okay. J.J. McCarthy. Concussion. It was developed late, kind of like his ankle issue was developed very late.
Which makes you wonder.
Yeah. So what do you think, Bri?
I mean, the most recent report I heard is that he's still in protocol, that he was a limited participant in his last practice, which was today. And correct me if I'm wrong if you've heard otherwise, but probably going to be up until the last minute here if he gets cleared or not. I know they're already preparing their rookie quarterback.
I could be mistaken, but I thought they came out and said definitively that Max Brosmer was going to be the starting quarterback this week.
You might be right, because I did see reports that saying that they were basically all in on preparing him to get ready and it sounded initially like JJ McCarthy was not going to be cleared in time for their game this weekend. And that's a real possibility. I feel bad for McCarthy, man. Like right out of the gate, he's had everything working against him, and he's had an uphill battle. And it all stems back from that meniscal injury that he sustained in the early part of his career, which required season-ending surgery before he even had a chance to basically do anything in this league. And so I think he's got a bum rap. That's a tough injury to come back from. He missed a ton of time. And I think the injury thing is starting to compile itself now, so I feel like once this season's over, if he could just hit the reset button, get himself in the gym and prepare mentally and physically for next year, he's still got a chance to do something in this league. So I hope he can do it. I think he's got talent. I think he's got skill. It's just that he's had a bum 2-year experience here, unfortunately, and the concussion doesn't help matters. And
especially when you have nothing between the ears to begin with, which I think is his biggest problem, to be honest.
And maybe that's true. I don't know the gentleman, young man, but that certainly at the quarterback position is not something you want to be hearing.
Brian, let me put it to you this way. When you are as bad as you are, and then you have an alter ego made up for yourself at number 9.
That's a problem.
A lot of red flags going off in my head. I'm just saying, like, not really cohesive with what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm just taking things, looking at it from a physical health standpoint. I'm not going too deep into all the other aspects of his game or psyche. But from a physical standpoint, not the way you want to enter the league, and certainly not going to make progress if every few weeks you're dealing with another type of injury that has you missing time. And the concussion sounds like it's going to be another high ankle episode. Hopefully not, but we'll see.
At least for a week. So it's funny, while we're recording this, Schefter tweeted out that amid the likelihood that JJ McCarthy misses on Sunday, so he hasn't been officially ruled out,
right,
but it's likely that he's going to be ruled out. And he was talking about Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson, wink, wink, saying they haven't lost faith in long-term prospects. Yeah, right. There's already been reports that they had lost faith a while ago, actually. But yeah, so not officially ruled out just as of yet. I do have a little piece of breaking news here. I got a little news notification. Apparently, Chris Olave left practice today early with a back issue. Neither one of us are going to have a lot of information on this, but just thought I would throw that out there since I just got that alert passed through my desk while we're recording this. All right. Max Brosmer. In case you guys don't know, he's a bit of a hometown hero. He was the quarterback of Minnesota University, undrafted for the Vikings. Beyond that, there's a reason why he was undrafted. I'm not really too hopeful about how well this thing's going to go on Sunday. So you have Jefferson. Here's what I can say. If you were playing Jefferson with JJ McCarthy, I don't know if it could be much worse. I mean, McCarthy they had 86 yards this past week. Like, if you were going to already play Jefferson anyway, and I suggest that you do because he's Justin Jefferson, even if you don't have the Justin Jefferson ceiling anymore, he's too good. His floor is too high for him to not be in your lineups. You plug and play him. I'm fine with you benching Jordan Addison. TJ Hawkinson should have been off your roster weeks ago anyway. We had already talked about that. And if anything, I would say that with Max Brosmer at quarterback, there's probably going to be a renewed urgency. Not that they weren't already kind of doing this to JJ McCarthy anyway, but a renewed urgency to really try to lean on the running backs to propel the offense. So Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, that kind of deal. I would play Aaron Jones there as low-end RB2, even with Brosmer out there. CJ Stroud. Are we finally going to get CJ Stroud back, you think?
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like it. He had a full participation today in practice, Wednesday, and one step closer to clearing protocol. I don't think he's officially been cleared yet, but that's a good sign. This is like heading into week 3 now with this concussion. He's already missed 2 games. So I'm sorry, I think he missed 3 games. But this is what you want to see. 2? Was it 2?
Yeah, it was 2 games.
I can't keep track anymore, Dan.
It's mid-season. We're throwing at you fast and furious all year long, man. I don't blame you at all. With CJ Stroud coming back, first of all, I just want to say, like, this morning when I woke up, all I got was reported D'Amico Ryan said CJ Stroud is still in concussion protocol. And the way they were reporting it was as if we were going to go a 3rd week without Stroud. And then it came back later on, like, well, he practiced in full today. I'm like, oh, okay. I hate when people do that. I hate when that happens. This drives me absolutely crazy. I do expect to see CJ Stroud back this particular week. Davis Mills, I mean, for fantasy football purposes, did pretty much what you wanted him to do. He threw the ball a lot to Nico Collins. He threw the ball a lot to Dalton Schultz. Woody Marks has taken over as the lead running back over Nick Chubb. Other than their ceilings for Nico Collins, that is, gets maximized a little bit. Maybe Jayden Higgins, too, who's played himself into that number 2 role. They reach a new level with CJ Stroud out there. But all in all, not huge changes there going back to Stroud coming up here. Let's go into the running backs. Josh Jacobs, we've been waiting on this. He's been dealing with that knee issue. Do we get him during Turkey Day?
Yeah, we'll see him. And I think that's part of the reason why they kept him out this past week. And he probably could have played this past weekend. I think they were just being extra cautious, knowing that they had the Turkey Day game coming up here. But he's been officially, I think, removed actually from the injury report, practicing in full, and we'll see him back.
Emmanuel Wilson did his job. If you picked him up, he got you 30 opportunities, 125 total yards, and 2 touchdowns. Wasn't very efficient. Don't carry, got all the volume. That's what you were looking for at the end of the day. But yes, Josh Jacobs is back and should be back in your lineups. Let's talk a little Ashton Genty. He came away with that last game with an ankle issue. They finally decided to use him, and he came away with an ankle issue. It was enough to get Chip Kelly fired, though. That was the good news.
And there's also good news in that it sounded like it was more of a scare rather than a serious injury to that ankle. He actually did participate in practice on Wednesday. Team has reported that it doesn't seem like it's anything serious. I watched the replay of the injury, and it potentially could have been bad, but he got lucky there, and it looks like it was just a minor tweak. So he should be ready to go and available this weekend.
Yeah, I believe he practiced in limited capacity today. So the fact that he practiced in limited capacity on a Wednesday after an injury like that is really good sign. He's going to suit up and play. If he wasn't going to go, it was probably going to be mostly Raheem Mostert coming out of the backfield. But now if he's going to be in there, you've had Brock Bowers, Chip Kelly's finally fired. I'm not saying the Raiders turn this thing around offensively, but I sure as hell have a lot more hope going into week 13 than I did the first 12 weeks of the season anyway. So let's keep our eyes on that and see how everything plays out. Bucky Irving. Update.
This could be the week. This is the week apparently they were shooting for. So here we are. I think we'll see him. He's continuing to do more and more each practice session. I don't know if he's actually even carrying a tag anymore, or if he has been.
He was full participant in practice today. Yeah.
So then that's there. I think we'll finally see. It's been since what, week 4? That's insane. He's tanked a lot of leagues. I do have a league or two that kind of brutal how long I had to be without Bucky Irving. One of them I'm toasting. The other one I'm still hanging on. So he's coming back at the right time. This hurts Sean Tucker. Now, with Bucky Irving out there, I don't know how much you really want to play Rachaad White either. Even in full point PPR, we're talking about an RB4. You got to be desperate to want to play him in the flex. And it's week 13. Nobody's on bye this week. You should have options to be able to turn to. But Rachaad White's role as the passing down back stays intact. So this is where I think people who don't eat, live, and breathe football get a little bit confused sometimes. Like, well, Sean Tucker took over as the number 2. I'm like, yeah, but he's a different type of running back. He had taken over as the early down goal line type of between the tackles runner. He had taken down that role. That goes right back to Bucky Irving, especially now that he's practicing in full. I don't think we're going to see much of a committee. Like, I'm not saying Bucky gets 100% his full plethora of snaps back week 1, but I don't think it's going to be to the point where we feel like we're walking away from a committee situation either, because they've waited so long to get him healthy enough to be able to rock and roll again. And I think that's a big key here. So Bucky Irving takes back that role. Rachaad White will have his 2-minute role, have his passing down role, but Bucky Irving needs to be played top 24 running back this week with him practicing in full and back. This guy might be back, but I have a little bit more pessimism than I just laid out for Bucky Irving. So what do you got on Amari and Hampton with the ankle? Well, I think it should be optimism, because he's entered the 21-day window. There's been video of him doing some drill. He looked really good. I just don't know if he's ready for this week. I think it might be next week instead.
Well, I think the Chargers would disagree. Well, and the only reason I even say that, so he was a limited participant in practice, which obviously like not as good as Bucky being full in practice, right? But when you have the offense coordinator talking about what your participation on Sunday is going to be. And he's saying with Amari Hampton and Kamani Vidal, it would likely be a 1-2 punch of some sort. That tells me you're fully anticipating the guy playing, but it doesn't sound like he's going to have his full workload.
Yeah, and that would be, I mean, if you're going to throw a guy back that quickly after entering into his 21-day window, after having been on IR, then yeah, you could expect some share of those snaps. And that would probably be the smart thing to do if you're the Chargers, rather than just giving him a full workload right out of the gate. Now, he looked good in practice, but like I always say, you can never quite simulate game-like conditions at any point during practices during the week. So, we'll see. Could he get back out there? Sure, absolutely. I mean, he's had enough time to recover. He looked good in drills, but the question is going to be whether he's going to be able to go full tilt and be 85% of what he was before the injury. And in most cases, until they get at least one game under their belt, I wouldn't expect it.
Well, here's my question back to you, because they had the report today that he was in fact dealing with an ankle fracture.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever really confirmed that. I originally, I think they were saying a high ankle sprain. There was various reports about what degree of the injury it was. I'm not so sure that really changed much as far as the timeline goes. Even with a high ankle sprain and no fracture, sometimes with a fracture, it could be almost the same amount of time to recover. And there's a lot of variability in when they report fracture, what it could have been. And that doesn't necessarily change my opinion or change necessarily the timeline that we would have expected him back from that. So I'm not overly concerned with the difference between a high ankle sprain and whatever fracture they're reporting now. I don't think it's going to affect him either way. It's about the same amount of time and recovery period. So again, is he going to be 85% of what he was before the injury 1 week into his 21-day window? I'm not so sure, and that could be why you heard the coach making those comments. There could be a backfield split here this weekend if he does, in fact, play. I think the wise thing to do would be maybe give him an extra few days next week to get ready and have him come back 85 to 100% better than throwing him out prematurely and expecting that you're going to get a top-tier performance out of him. But, the Chargers might be in desperate mode and need him back, and so that could be why you'll see him participate this weekend. But from a fantasy standpoint, I don't know if you're going to get the full production you possibly could get from him if they just waited an extra week.
Well, like the Chargers, from a fantasy standpoint, we might be in desperation mode too. And I can speak to that with a few leagues as well. Yeah. And getting Amari Hampton back, as much as I know that I'm not getting 100% Amari Hampton, that I'm not going to get the full workload, having him back over some of the other options I had available to me, it was definitely a plus.
I hear you.
Yeah, it's all relative, buddy.
That's
it's
right.
all relative.
Right.
Here's what I would say. On a normal scale, Amari Hampton is more of a high-end RB3 in my opinion. So with Kamani Vidal, even if this winds up being a split, here's what I would expect. I would expect Vidal to have most of the passing down work. I would expect Amari Hampton, if there's goal line work to be had, for him to have that. The real problem here actually isn't whether or not he's going to get an X amount of touches. The real issue is that the Raiders have been kind of annoying against running backs for fantasy football purposes this year. And the Chargers offensive line is as decimated as they come and has, as a result, been inconsistent with what they've been able to provide in the run game to begin with. So he's more of an RB3, in my opinion, this week. If you have other options to pivot to, maybe it'd be nice to see what he does for a week, and then you can start playing again in week 14. I do think Amari Hampton's going to be key for teams down the playoff stretch who are able to make it there with him injured this long. But I wouldn't expect, to Brian's point, I wouldn't expect a big output this particular week. Remember, look at the Raiders, they licked their chops. I'm like, the Raiders have allowed the 12th least amount of points to the fantasy football running back. Like, they're kind of annoying there. But the passing game, that's where that thing goes down. That's where Lamar Jackson, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, all those guys should be able to have a pretty good game. So keep that in mind for this one. Just temper expectations. Isiah Pacheco, I think he's good to go for Turkey Day.
Yeah, I think he is. I think that was one of the reasons why they didn't have him step back into the field this past weekend. He tried coming back last week, had a brace on his knee. It was quite bulky. He didn't like it. He decided to go without it, and I think that's probably the better thing to do, believe it or not. And if he can do it without the brace and feel comfortable, which it sounds like that's what he did over the last week here, then he should be good to go. He's had adequate time. MCL sprains can sometimes take anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks. He's kind of within that time frame. It makes sense. Initially, he actually tried to play through it when he first got hurt, so it wasn't serious. I think it was the following day or two where he really felt kind of the symptoms from that injury, but not completely unstable, did not require surgery. We should see him make a return this weekend.
I still wouldn't play him, FYI. So I would rather play Omarion Hampton and Isiah Pacheco and I know it's against Dallas, but Dallas's defense, since they've acquired Quentin Williams, is a lot better against the run. Between him and then Grant in the middle, that's a tough run defense right now over the past couple of weeks, and they've played like it as a reason too. And then on top of it, you still have the fact that Kareem Hunt, even when Pacheco was healthy and playing, Kareem Hunt was still the goal line back. Like, this is pretty much a poor man version of the Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet scenario where, yeah, maybe Pacheco is the better running back and he gets work in between the 20s. It doesn't matter because it's not that much work. He's not being that explosive because they're not running that effectively. And then when they finally get an opportunity for him to score and balance out fantasy-wise, it goes to Kareem Hunt. This is pretty much the poor man version of Seattle's backfield. So I would not want to play Pacheco. I don't have him inside my top 36 this week, if at all, if I can help it. I actually would value Kareem Hunt slightly more because of the touchdown potential. Any updates here on Trey Benson? I've been patiently waiting.
So I don't think he's quite ready just yet. As far as I can tell from all reports, he's still not back to full participation in practice. They opened his 21-day practice window, I think, last week, if I'm not mistaken. And he got some limited sessions in. I think originally when we reported on him entering that 21-day window, I was under the impression, just based on some reporting and everything and the way it was kind of termed, that they would probably take that full 21 days before they actually activated him again. And I think that's what it's kind of shaping up to be here. So I don't think we're going to see him quite yet this week, but next week is it. So if they're going to make a decision on him, it's going to have to be before the end of next week.
Yeah, when he came out today and was a limited participant in practice again, I kind of got the vibe it's probably going to be another week before we see him, which honestly is okay. This is not a run defense against Tampa Bay that you necessarily want to go up against. And he's got another tough one next. I believe it's Houston they play next week. They got another tough one again next week. But Trey Benson, make no mistake, if somehow he's still out there, I don't know that he would be, but if somehow he's still out there in your leagues, make sure you grab him because he has a great playoff schedule. Like, there's a real chance here, Trey Benson fully healthy with the workload he should have, because Bam Knight and Michael Carter stink, that he could actually be a league winner for you in the fantasy football playoffs. So if you have any shot of getting Trey Benson, or if you have him, be patient. Be patient, because he's going to pay off for you in a big way, I think. Alvin Kamara dealing with an MCL now.
Yeah, and I think they diagnosed that officially on Monday, but it looked like that was the injury even after during the game. Now, the good news is when he got injured, he actually tried to kind of work it out, was seen on the sideline doing some jogging up and down to see if he tested out and see if he could go. So it didn't seem like it was too serious. But this could be a multi-week absence. I'm going to go with at least a minimum of probably 2 weeks, but probably no more than 4. And I don't think it's going to even approach that much. He's always healed pretty quick from most of his injuries over the years. He's a workhorse. He's been in the league a long time. He has not missed a substantial portion of his career because of injury. And over the years, he's dealt with some pretty significant stuff, especially in his ankles. But this one sounds like he got escaped major injury, and we should see him hopefully back within 2 weeks, is my prediction.
It's as bad as this sounds, Brian. It's not really what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear that Alvin Kamara was just going to be like, look, I'm done rest of the season. It's a lost season. You're an old veteran running back. You only have X amount of plays left in your system. I would much rather Kamara just sits out the rest of this year and takes what little juice he has left and goes and actually plays for a real contender next season, where maybe he can be like an Austin Eckler going to the Washington Commanders type of player somewhere. Like, I don't really want to hear him coming back to the Saints this year. And for the Saints too, like, what's the point? Serious. What's the point? But
I mean, you make a strong case that could be how this plays out. We'll have to see.
We will have to see. Also, because I picked up Devin Neal everywhere, and
I knew it. There's more to that.
Of course. So, to your point, though, Kamara's going to be out for at least this week, maybe 2. Devin Neal's got the Miami Dolphins this weekend. Now, I don't want to go crazy. There's a lot of people out there saying, like, well, Devin Neal is getting all the work. He had 86% of the snaps when Alvin Kamara went out, and now he's got the Miami Dolphins to go up against. The Dolphins over the last 4 weeks have not been the same defense that they were early on in the season where you wanted to play every running back you could against them. They've actually been quite good last few weeks and now they're coming off the bye week. Now, maybe something changes. I don't know, but this is not the ripe for the taking defense that they were early in the season. I only say that because I want people to caution their excitement on the potential of Devin Neal for this week. Remember, it's still the Saints, still a really bad offense. I like Devin Neal more as a pass catcher than I do as a runner. And this past week, we kind of saw that. He had 7 targets, 5 catches for 43 yards. He was much more effective as a passer or a receiver than he was a runner in that one. But as long as he's getting all around workload, we're talking about, a low in RB2, high in RB3 here. And I do think we get that against Miami. Now, I know I don't really have in my injury list, Brian, but I do know that he was a limited participant in practice today with a knee issue. He was a limited participant on an injury we didn't know about on a Wednesday. He's probably going to play on Sunday, which is why I didn't even add him to the injury report. I think he'll be fine. So Devin Neal kind of in that territory with Alvin Kamara out. Drake London. I think Raheem Morris might have lied to me again. What do you got on Drake London?
We're not going to. I don't think we're going to see him back this week. They're already saying he's doubtful, which means there's a 25% chance that he even plays. That to me is a no-go. He's dealing with this PCL sprain. He's going to be week to week. We said that originally. These can sometimes take a while. And there's been a few of those this season, ironically, with Brock Bowers, of course, being probably the most notorious one, fantasy related. He missed 6 weeks, I think, total with his PCL sprain and bone contusion, which could be what Drake London's also dealing with. It's not unusual to see those 2 injuries go hand in hand, but I think he did get some limited sessions in during practice, but is not quite ready yet. And again, it sounds like they've already confirmed basically that he's not going to be available this week.
Yeah, when I said Raheem Morris lied to me again, it was last week when he said, he'll be back week 13. No. I knew that wasn't happening. Look, I just want this to not be the Ricky Pearsall injury because that would mean Drake London's out for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
If he's going to miss 6 weeks. So I just need it to not be that. I need him to be back week 15. Okay. Do whatever you got to do, which doctor you have to go to, and just be back week 15. That's all I ask. So we'll keep you guys up to date on Drake London. In the meantime, it was nice to see that Kirk Cousins maybe had something in the tank. He did hit Darnell Mooney on a long pass last week. I'm still not trusting it. They still definitely want to hide him. They became a run first team, which is why you saw Tyler Algier involved as much as he was this past week. So I'm not loving Kyle Pitts, not loving Darnell Mooney, but maybe some hope when Drake London does come back if Cousins can still show you that he can throw the ball at least to some degree. Rashee Rice, I know he's off the injury report now. I wanted to keep him on there for this reason because I wanted to ask you a question, Brian. Mm-hmm. When we hear players have hamstring injuries, I mean, that's like the kiss of death.
Yeah, usually.
You just don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then he has the hamstring injury. He comes back out for like a major play in overtime. They're playing on a Thursday. He gets listed with the hamstring injury in the estimation on a Monday, and then practices in full on Tuesday. So was this hamstring or was this cramps?
Well, listen, anytime these guys are treated or miss a portion of a full practice because of treatments or an injury, they have to be listed on the injury report by league rules. So that could mean any number of things as far as what the injury is, though. And they don't necessarily have to go into specifics. They just basically have to list what body part or the nature of the injury. And so that could be as simple as ankle injury, hamstring injury. And that's what you end up seeing. They don't really go into much detail, but it could have been just a cramp. It could have been he felt a twinge. It could have been maybe he was having a spasm or something like that. Maybe he did strain it. Maybe it just wasn't that serious. We don't necessarily know. We may never know the full extent of it. But just because you see a guy on the injury report with an injury, that it doesn't tell you anything about the severity. And that's where it becomes really important in watching the daily reports, looking at the week-to-week progression or digression of how they're coming back from the injury, what kind of rehab they're doing, what their status is heading into the games each week. So it sounds like it was nothing serious. Could have been just a little twinge or a cramp in there. A lot of times that could be the precursor to a strain, so to speak. So sometimes they'll treat that almost like as if you have a strain and be very cautious with it because you don't want to, again, send somebody out there and cause them to really pull that muscle. That'll just be several week absence and be very detrimental to their overall health. So especially when you're talking about a skilled position player at the wide receiver position who basically is a speed guy. You want them to be 100%. So good sign that he made it to a full practice session. I think he's actually even been taken off the injury report now, which means he's no longer missing any practice drills or portion of practice and probably isn't even getting treatment for it anymore, although that could vary. So that's a good sign.
No, it's an excellent sign. And in a matchup against the Dallas Cowboys, you need Rashee Rice, who's been a top 5 wide receiver since he's returned to be out there. I just thought it was a little bit crazy because my heart went straight through my stomach when they tried to say it was a hamstring injury at first. But then I'm watching the overtime play. I'm like, he's running. He looks okay. And then nobody wanted to talk about it afterwards. And it was one of those crazy situations. But we're going to have Rashee.
The league does have very explicit rules about how these things get reported. And a lot of it is because of planning for opposition to be able to plan, game plan. And betting, right? Absolutely. Gambling is huge based on all that stuff. And it's all, documented and listed out in the rule books, how they have to go about reporting players' injuries and stuff. And while it could be very vague, sometimes it is because they don't even know, or maybe it's not serious. And that's part of the reason.
Yeah, sure. What about his teammate, Xavier Worthy, who is dealing with an ankle issue as well, coming off of his big performance?
He's expected to be out there. Apparently, he's been upgraded in team reports as well and practiced in full and was taken off with any designation. So I think he'll be good to go.
All right, look at that. Chiefs receivers rocking and rolling. So here's something interesting. Jonathan Gannon comes out and says that there's no timeline on Marvin Harrison. What do you make of that?
It's not surprising. Now, I originally said that minimum 2 weeks coming off of appendectomy surgery, which nowadays they do through very small incisions, and they do it laparoscopically, which is much better than when I had mine removed in the 11th grade back in the 90s, and they did about a 4-inch incision in my lower right quadrant of my abdomen. It took me months before I felt better after that procedure. So the laparoscopic version that they do now is a much, much quicker recovery, but I knew it would be at least 2 weeks. And he did step back on the practice field today or this week. He has been doing stuff. But this is really going to be based on how he feels. This is not, like a structural injury to a joint or a ligament or a muscle. It's purely about how Marvin Harrison feels he's doing and how much he feels he's ready to play. The only thing that really sucks about this is that it involves your core. It involves your core muscles. It involves a portion of your abdomen where you had the appendix taken out. And that can quickly cause a lot of discomfort and pain with just general everyday movements and actions. And then you got to step back on the practice field at this level and get back to game participation and 100% activity. It can make it challenging and it can take some time. You lose a lot of conditioning very quickly with this type of illness and surgery. So it's not unheard of or unusual. He's probably going to be a week-to-week thing. But I knew it would be at least 2 weeks, and that's just because he had some incisions that they had to make sure were healing properly and sutures that probably had to be removed, and he had to feel good. And that whole process can usually take at least 2 weeks. So it sounds like he's at least doing stuff at practice where he wasn't last week. So he's heading down the right path. But it could be a week-to-week thing.
So everybody's trying to figure this part out. Is Michael Wilson the number one? Is he still going to have a role when Marvin Harrison comes back? And I've never understood the Michael Wilson love. I wasn't a big fan of him when he was in Stanford. We're talking about a guy right now who's 25, 100 days or so away from being 26 years old. And he's in year 3. Anybody else with his draft to production profile in the first 3 years of his career, we would have all moved on from. For some reason, people don't want to do it when it comes to Michael Wilson. I don't know why. Whatever. When Marvin Harrison comes back, make no mistake, he is the number one wide receiver. He's the guy they drafted in the top 5. He's the guy they have to make work. And I'll also say this. It's not fair. The Cardinals finally go to a quarterback who's actually able to run the offense, and Harrison only got like a game of that before he had to have the surgery out of the blue. Wilson doesn't deserve a bigger role. He's going to go back to his opposite side perimeter role. Marvin Harrison will get his, and you'll be just fine with Harrison being a top 20 wide receiver the rest of the way when he does return with Jacoby Brissett with the way he's playing right now. That's how it's going to work. There's nothing special about Michael Wilson that he needs to eat into a Marvin Harrison workload. There is something so special about Marvin Harrison, and it's unfair what he's had to go through with Kyler Murray the first couple of years. And it's not all on Kyler Murray. Drew Petzing's an idiot too, because he still uses him completely improperly, Marvin Harrison, that is, on what his skill set is to begin with. When you draft a player in a top 5, I would think you've done your due diligence on what he's going to excel at early on. They don't use him that way. That's also on the offensive coordinator, just to lay this out here. But my point is this. Marvin Harris is a top 20 wide receiver. Michael Wilson will go back to being unplayable once this maneuver happens. Until then, Harrison misses again this week. Michael Wilson's a top 20 receiver for us in fantasy football purposes because Jacoby Brissett is throwing the ball over 40 times a game, no matter who they play, no matter what the game script is. So there you go. Brian Thomas, ankle issue. What else you got here?
Well, when he first got injured, it was kind of unclear as to what the extent of the injury was. They were saying just an ankle injury, and then it turned out that some reports came out showing it was a high ankle sprain, and that kind of makes more sense as we see things play out here. He's still limited in practice. I don't think he's going to be ready this week. He's basically week to week at this point. And this is pretty typical of a high ankle sprain. They can take several weeks. Usually it's anywhere between 4 to 6 in most cases, especially if it was any sort of a moderate degree type sprain. I mean, to try and come back sooner usually ends up setting them back even further. So, again, not ready. I don't think this week, going to be a week-to-week thing, so keep an eye on what he's able to do in practice. But as of right now, he's still limited.
If he misses, Jacoby Myers is still the guy I'm ranking the highest for the Jaguars wide receivers. So I know Parker Washington finally had the good game last week, and everybody's making a big deal like, oh, Parker Washington could be a legitimate thing. Let's keep something in mind here. Parker Washington's had these moments before, and he's gone right back to being completely irrelevant in weeks after that. All right. He had 7 targets. Jacoby Myers had 6. He just happened to have the 71 yards and a touchdown, but Myers also had 50 yards and a touchdown too. Myers just got traded to the team. And in the first 2 weeks before this, he was leading Parker Washington. Jacoby's the number 1 receiver there. Now, the only thing that makes this a little bit more complicated was the return of Brenton Strange, who we felt his presence right away his first game back. So maybe he eats a little bit into both of these guys. No matter how we break this down, even in a matchup against Tennessee, in a game in which Jacksonville should be able to control on the ground, and they've proven now they're leaning into what their identity needs to be. They want to be a run first team and play defense up front and have that be our identity because Trevor Lawrence stinks, and they want to actually be able to hide him, and that's what we're running into right now. If you're going to play one receiver, I'm playing Jacoby Myers, knowing that he has a base floor, but nobody really has a huge ceiling in this one. Nobody. Not with the way they play, with the way they utilize these guys. All right. DK Metcalf, ankle issue. Didn't practice today.
Yeah, but doesn't sound like it's serious. Mike Tomlin was downplaying the injury, and this was the first time he's missed any practice time at all this season. The guy's a physical specimen. It didn't seem like it was a serious injury when it occurred. I'm optimistic that even though he didn't practice today, that it's not a huge deal and he'll still be available.
Well, that's good to hear. So if he plays, you play him as a top 24 wide receiver, more of a low-end wide receiver too than anything else so far this season. This is one of those guys where, like, the model says targets should be there, but then you remember it's Arthur Smith offense, it's run heavy, plays a lot of tight ends, and you always want to be like a little bit disappointed in the usage that you got out of DK Metcalf, but nonetheless, still more of a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 type. There's been movement on the Terry McLaurin front.
Yeah. it actually sounds like he might give it a go this weekend from what he was saying. He said that he was intending to play and he felt better than he did coming back the first time with this injury. The team's taking it day to day, though, and he was a limited participant on Wednesday, so still might not be ready, even though he says he is. Last time he said that, he came back and got hurt again, and he never looked good the first time around. He never looked like he quite recovered. Even when he was saying he was good, there was clips of him at practice still showing signs of favoring that side. I'm not optimistic that they're going to play him this week because I don't still think he's fully recovered yet, despite what he's saying. But we'll see what he does the rest of the week here. We're running out of time. Thanksgiving tomorrow. When do they play, by the way? They're not one of the Thursday games, are they?
No, they play Sunday.
So he's got a normal time, but the problem is they're probably not going to do much on Thursday. Friday's probably going to be just a light practice walkthrough, and then you got your game on Sunday. So again, with a quad injury, not quite as bad as a hamstring. However, this is a powerful muscle group in the front of your thigh that you need to be able to do powerful, quick accelerations and stuff like that. If he can't test it out in a game-like condition, and the only way you're able to do that is to go full in practice, I don't see how he can say he's ready. And I don't see how the team can basically say that too. So keep that in the back of your mind.
That's where I'm with you. So like, if you just go by the vibes of the team, it does feel like they're pushing like Terry McLaurin's going to play this weekend, but he only practiced in limited capacity today. When you have a guy, to your point, who's been out this long with a soft tissue injury and he opens up the week not fully participating, I question fully if the guy's actually going to play this week. Now, it's happened in the past, sure, but I still question, especially with a guy who's been out as many games as Terry McLaurin has and is already re-injured this particular injury as well. So I would not hold my breath. That would make Debo Samuel number one receiver on that team. But Debo has fallen more into a wide receiver 3 because he's turned into a pumpkin in the second half of the season like he has done every year since 2021. Jayden Reed, any movement on him? I know he's out already for this week, but what do we think he's moving forward?
You got to remind me because I feel like I haven't spoken about him in forever.
So it was a foot shoulders issue, more so the foot than anything else.
Was there some talk, or was he on IR, or I forget?
He's still on IR.
Yeah, so I don't know if they've actually even opened up his 21-day window yet.
They have. So because he practiced in capacity, so they opened it up. It just they rolled him out for tomorrow.
Yeah. So I mean, well, again, this is 2 injuries, 2 body parts. Probably going to be closer to that 21-day mark before they make a final decision. I think next week will be a good, true test of where he's at. He'll definitely ramp up his activity of practice. But I think this is the smart thing to do when you have a guy coming out of a 4-game absence. I don't think it's wise to just throw them out there the first week they're back. Like I said, you can't simulate game conditions, and they can't step on the field and do anything with the team until they are activated until their 21-day window is open. So that's the thing. Like, you can say, oh yeah, he looks good and he's ready, but he hasn't been able to do anything with the team. That's by rule. So when you're on IR, you can't practice with the team. So, just getting a few days of that in is not enough for most guys. He's going to need at least another week.
And that seems to be the route that they're going there too. I want to talk about Matthew Golden before I dive into the Packer wide receivers. So he was dealing with the wrist. What do you got on him?
Limited in practice on Wednesday's session. Probably going to carry a questionable tag. It doesn't sound like it's anything serious that he can't possibly play through. Might have to have it wrapped or braced, but we'll see what he's able to do going forward.
What a mess the Packer wide receiver group is. I mean, just so when Jayden Reed comes back, you're going to have Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Jayden Reed, Matthew Golden, Datavian Wicks. And the Packers are going to rotate all 5 maddeningly because that's exactly what LaFleur does to drive you all crazy. But what's more funny to me than that even is that we're right back to where we started. Christian Watson, for fantasy football purposes, if you're taking a shot on one Packer wide receiver, we're right back to it being Christian Watson. Because he's the one guy who can catch a deep ball and score touchdowns every so often. Because Romeo Doubs doesn't do that. He gets a little, he gets a little bit of work here in between the 20s. Great, fantastic. Touchdowns? No. 100 yards? Never in his career. And then you got Datavian Wicks. Who knows how many snaps he plays that game? Their first-round draft pick, Matthew Golden, he's playing less and less as the weeks have gone on. And we're waiting for Jayden Reed to come back probably within the next couple of weeks, too, on top of it. Just right back where we started.
And Watson's coming off his ACL. And he's only been back. He hasn't even been back the whole season.
He looks the best out of all of them. That's what's crazy. And then when you add in the little sprinkle on top that is Jordan Love playing absolutely terrible football over the past few weeks, it just doesn't make it any easier. I'm watching this game against Detroit. Because if Jordan Love against that banged up secondary, and Detroit's got like none of their starters playing in that secondary this week, if against that banged up secondary can't look better than he has the past month, alarms need to be raised. Alarms need to be raised everywhere. You're in a big game against a division matchup in Dome and backup JV squad in the secondary. If you can't put up numbers against that defense and that team in that situation, alarms are going to need to be raised there for Jordan Love. All right, so let's talk about the tight ends. We got two of them. Dalton Kincaid still dealing with the hamstring injury. You got any updates there?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see him Sunday. He did not practice on Wednesday still. He's missed multiple games. Their head coach was saying that there's a chance he could play Sunday. I don't see that happening. Coming off a hamstring injury, probably going to be week to week still. We'll see what he's able to do next week, but this week does not look like it's happening.
Yeah, he's not off to a good start. When you come back on a hamstring injury, I'm with you. You need to be practicing in full on Wednesday for me to feel like you got a real shot to actually play on Sunday. We already know what that means fantasy-wise. Fire up James Cook and Khalil Shakir if you have to. And that's pretty much what it boils down to. This one, I did not think we were going to be talking about this guy for the rest of the season. Like, I didn't think this was even like a possibility. But apparently, the Miami Dolphins opened up the 21-day window on Darren Waller coming back from his pec injury.
Yeah, I just thought we'd see him retire again like he did the first time around. But alas, here we are. I'm not sure. I'm surprised he's even still fantasy relevant that we're talking about him, but here we are. Again, a pec injury. I don't even know if this happened in the game or if this was something that happened when he was in the weight room. What did not require surgery as far as I know. Can easily get re-aggravated, though. Your pec, obviously, pec major is usually the one that gets injured, and that's an important muscle group for a lot of upper body movements and things that you need to do when you're a blocking, catching tight end. So I don't think he's going to be ready this week. He's going to need to get out in the field and do stuff. I don't know if he did anything today. I think they just opened his window. He might have been limited, but even so, I don't think it's going to be this week. We'll have to see what he's able to do and if he ramps up things next week.
Yeah, it was a limited capacity. I don't think it's going to be this week either. But Brian, you said it. Fantasy relevant. The reason he's on my list is because he is fantasy relevant. It just this whole thing is just mind blowing. So why is he fantasy relevant? Well, because in the game and a half that he played, especially at the tight end position, they threw him the ball a lot in the red zone in particular. So if you're going to be in this team scoring touchdowns because you have Jalen Waddle and nobody really else established outside of that, and Mike McDaniel seemingly is going to hold on to his job for another year. If you're reading the tea leaves, they're going on the Miami offense, which is definitely was not on my bingo card in September. I'll tell you that much right there. Darren Waller winds up being fantasy relevant. So if you've been streaming tight end and you're looking to make a playoff run, Darren Waller might be somebody you want to pick up. I don't have anything else beyond that because it doesn't feel good to say, but yeah, that's kind of where we are.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, it's going to wrap up the show. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. Brian, thanks so much for taking the time. We got to move the schedules around to make this thing work too. And I'm glad you're able to do that. But what do you have coming up that you want people to check out?
Well, we'll be right back at it with TSS on Friday night and Sunday morning doing the last minute updates. As always, I've been putting out my Tuesday morning injury recap for the weekend injuries and then the preview for the weekend games coming up. I did that again this week. Unfortunately, I had a little video issue, so I did not get it out on YouTube or the video feeds until later. But I still have it dropped wherever you listen to your podcasts. Talked about a few of the players on that list tonight, so you can also just replay this episode and get even more detail because a couple days have gone by now. We've got some more info. But I try to do that on Tuesdays so you can prepare a little bit ahead of time, make some waiver pickups and roster moves ahead of everybody else and get the advantage. So check that out. And of course, I do my daily updates, reposts, comments, and all that stuff on X and all my other social media stuff. I'll be throwing some teasers out and things like that. But yeah, I'll be doing a Blonde Blitz episode next Wednesday with Deb Wickus over there on That Sports Podcast Network. Check that out. She's awesome. Emmy-winning award producer. She's got a lot of great content. And then, of course, the guys at TSS and Dan, usually on Thursdays, but this week, because of Thanksgiving, doing it a night early, but more than happy to do it.
Yeah, everything's on rush order this week. So you got to make sure you check out Dr. Brian Scott on the Injury List podcast. So I'm dropping this episode like right away. So that way you guys can get it, because I'm going to be going live 11 a.m. Thursday morning with Chaz Flaherty, Sports Betting Weekly. We're going to talk about some bets for the Thanksgiving Day and all of Week 13 as well. My top 5 player props for Thanksgiving, that article on the Huddle already dropped, so make sure you check that out. My normal 15-player prop article for the weekend will be out on Saturday as per norm. But go to Operation Domination, your favorite podcast app. Check out our video content on the Fantasy Football Advice Network YouTube channel at FF Advice Net. I'll see you guys tomorrow.